What's going on, everyone? My name is Jasmine. On today's episode of the Slam Project, we're going to be talking about the disappearance and murder of 16-year-old Regina Curtis. Despite several pleas from her family, it took authorities 16 years to identify her body. Her case is still unsolved and her killer has never been caught. Don't forget to check out my other videos, and if you want to see more videos on missing and murdered Indigenous people, click that subscribe button and the notification bell. Now let's get right into it. Regina Curtis was a well-loved and cherished member of her family. She was born on December 10, 1983, to her parents Inez White Buffalo Curtis and Gilbert Curtis Sr. The family lived in Clinton and El Reno before settling in Oklahoma City. The family lived at 717 Southwest 33rd Street when they moved to Oklahoma City. Regina was a freshman in high school when she was last seen on Wednesday, May 10, 2000. Not much is publicized about her case, but her auntie Sammy Curtis and her cousin Shannon gave interviews with the True Indigenous Crime podcast and revealed some unpublished information that will be shared with the following information released by law enforcement. On the day Regina was last seen, her cousin Shannon, his grandmother, and sister were in town from Clinton, Oklahoma to visit with Regina and her family. The family often visited each other for special occasions, birthdays, and holidays. Shannon was 20 years old at the time and remembers vividly the last time he saw Regina. He said that everyone was in the driveway of Regina's family's apartment when she announced that she was going to go to a nearby store to use a payphone. Shannon said he could see her until she cut across a field to get to the store. Shannon believes that she said she was going to call her boyfriend. He recalls that the store was not too far away and it could be seen from Regina's house. The time was just before sunset. A Google search reveals that sunset was at 8:24 p.m. that evening in Oklahoma City. Shannon and his family waited at her house so that they could say their see you laters to Regina. But about an hour went by and she did not return, so they left back to Clinton. They just assumed that maybe her boyfriend had picked her up and she was going to be late coming home. Regina's family noticed that she did not return home like she usually did, and they were worried. Her family tried to file a missing persons report right away, but were told that they needed to wait up to 72 hours. They called their family in Clinton and informed them that she still had not returned. The first police report on file about Regina was on Friday, May 12, 2000. It says that her mom last saw her around 11 p.m. on Wednesday, May 10th, and that she was wearing a tan shirt and blue jeans. I would not look too deep into the time discrepancy between sunset and the time reported as last seen. These are all estimated times, and perhaps the 11 p.m. time is around the time that Regina's cousins left back to Clinton. And the sun is usually slightly visible for a short time in the sky before it goes dark. The time she left could have been closer to 8:45 to 9 p.m. Also in the police report, Regina's mother stated that someone called anonymously from El Reno, Oklahoma, and said that they had spotted Regina there. This caller was never identified, and her mother has no clue who called and told her this. This is interesting because Regina had previously lived in El Reno with her family. So did this mystery caller know this? It was also never stated if this caller was a man or a woman, or if Regina's boyfriend was thoroughly investigated. But despite concerns from the family, the police initially thought Regina was a runaway and did not suspect foul play. Perhaps they took the anonymous phone call at face value and looked no further into it. But the wait for Regina to come home would take 16 years. Immediately after Regina went missing, her family began searching the area themselves. They made dozens of phone calls, hung up posters, and canvassed the neighborhood, but nothing was ever uncovered about Regina's whereabouts. Then on Thursday, June 22, 2000, a man mowing his lawn near Lake Stanley Draper discovered a human skull. The location is said to be near the intersection of 134th and Sana, just east of the lake. The man said that he did not notice the skull the last time he mowed on June 12th. Police searched the surrounding area and found more bones that included ribs, both clavicles, and a jawbone. Clothing was also found that included a white sleeveless t-shirt, blue denim carpenter jeans that had been rolled at the cuffs, a bra, and white socks. There was no mention of shoes or underwear, but since the remains had been scattered by animals, it is possible that these articles had been dragged off rather than kept as a trophy by someone. But either of these scenarios is possible because the police never stated if they believed the crime was sexually motivated. When initially found, police did suspect that the remains could have belonged to one of three girls: Crystal Dittmeyer, Amber Barker, or Kirsten Hatfield. These were child disappearances of young girls between the ages of 8 and 12 that took place in 1996 and 1997 in and around Oklahoma City. These girls are all suspected to be murdered, and their remains still have never been found to this day. I will leave video links to these cases in the description box. Law enforcement made no mention of Regina Curtis possibly being the Jane Doe at the time. At the time, the police labeled her as a runaway and not a missing person, and they would later admit that they never thought that Jane Doe was her until about 2006. At the time of Jane Doe's autopsy, no cause of death could be determined, and they estimated the time of death around June 1999 to March 2000. They thought this unknown person was between 13 and 17 years old, with a petite frame and brown shoulder-length hair. They also believed that this person was a mix of Caucasian and Native, or Caucasian and Hispanic. A few months later, in November 2000, a clay reconstruction of the skull was released to the media and school district. On the flyer, a description of the clothing was included, along with what was believed to be their race. One thing noted was that they had dentals ready for comparison. The skull was found about 6 weeks after Regina went missing. Her cousin Shannon stated that they contacted the police about any unidentified body or bones found, regardless of what race the police thought they were. Although I could not find out if the family thought this was her at the time the skull was found and contacted the police, I cannot believe that they didn't either. Perhaps they did and they were brushed off because the police thought this person had died before Regina went missing, and they just thought she was a runaway out there with her friends. Either way, they had dentals on file for the unidentified body. An attempt should have at least been made to compare this with Regina's dental chart. In October 2002, information pertaining to the clay reconstruction was released to the media again, with no results. In December 2002, the information about the skull was sent to the school district again, and bone fragments were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification in hopes of getting a DNA profile. The police department would be contacted by them in January 2005, and they were informed that there was not enough bone marrow to provide a profile, so more bones were sent so they could collect a sample. In 2006, the Curtis family went to the Oklahoma City Police and wanted Regina's case reopened and investigated as a missing person. Her family did not believe she ran away from home and wanted answers. The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, or OSBI, obtained DNA samples from members of Regina's family that included her dad, brother, and sister. These were sent to North Texas to be compared with the findings from the Jane Doe that was found and currently awaiting testing. It is stated by police spokesman Captain Paco Valderrama that the police never suspected Regina of being the unidentified person before this point in time. By March 2010, the DNA results still had not returned from Texas, so a composite sketch was ordered and released to the public. This sketch gave a better likeliness to the unidentified female than the clay composite did. The phone lines lit up with several calls from Regina's family. The detectives on the case took notice of all the calls received from the family and finally started to believe that this unidentified person was Regina. It seems as if the family had everyone call the tip line in a desperate plea to get the police to listen to them. At the time this was going on, it had been 5 years since a second bone sample was sent to Texas and 4 since DNA from Regina's family members were sent to the same place. The University of North Texas is the main repository for identifying human remains. I do understand that they have a backlog from receiving so many samples, but this was taking an extremely long time, and it would be almost 6 more years before the university came back with some answers. In January 2016, the University of North Texas informed the Oklahoma City Police that the remains found in June 2000 did in fact belong to Regina Curtis. There was never an explanation of why it took 10 years to compare the DNA from the Jane Doe and Regina's family. The Oklahoma City Police did not ask the university why it took so long for confirmation. In February 2016, her family was finally notified of the positive match. A press conference was held on February 9, 2016, and the public was informed of the findings. There was never any mention if the police had a suspect or person of interest. Captain Balarama did his best to answer questions from reporters and gave much due credit to the detective that was working Regina's case at the time of identification. Since 2006, the Oklahoma City Police had a good indication that this was probably Regina, but lacked DNA confirmation to prove it indefinitely. My question is if her dental charts were ever requested for comparison to the Jane Doe found. This could have ended the long wait for the DNA results to come back. So this makes me think that she had never been to a dentist, which is highly unlikely, she hadn't been to one in a long time, or that the police simply never asked for these charts. And why did the Oklahoma City Police not take the family's insistence that this was Regina more seriously? DNA technology was progressing pretty good by the year 2010 came around and the new sketch was released. I do think that more could have been done to try to identify the bones sooner. I do understand budget constraints, but maybe pieces of hair that belong to the skull could have been sent to a different lab in hopes of getting results faster. Regardless of this, Regina's family was relieved to get some answers, but the question remains, who killed her and why? Regina was laid to rest in Canton, Oklahoma. Both of her parents have since passed away. Her remaining family would still like to know the whole truth about what happened to Regina. She was only 16 years old and had a bright future ahead of her. Regina is gone but not forgotten. Please contact the Oklahoma City Police Department with any information you can provide on Regina's case, or if you know what she was doing around May 2000. Any detail may help, and no piece of information is too small. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you knew Regina, please share any memories of her, and I will see you in my next video.